All right, sorry for starting a little late. We had some technical difficulties. My name is Jacqueline Myers. I work for DCI under the CY branch. I do enterprise architecture. In this case, I'm doing the enterprise architecture, security architecture specifically for 5G for the Marine Corps. My brief is pretty quick. We're going to kind of power through it. It's really just a high-level overview of cybersecurity for 5G, kind of where we as a Marine Corps are looking to go with 5G, and then how 5G or private 5G network integrates with or ties into that overall zero trust architecture, right, and the initiatives that we're doing for that. So with that being said, I'll just try and go through these slides a bit. It's going to be a little painful, so I apologize. All right, so as I said, things that we're going to be talking about, types of 5G networks, DoD trust, capability mapping, activities as they pertain to 5G, some high-level workflow and process flows, threats and attacks that affect 5G, interconnections and flows, and then integration, enterprise integration. So let's see. So like I said, the purpose of this and the purpose of my brief is really just to inform the fleet of really, from a cybersecurity perspective, what we expect out of a 5G network, right? And how we can best leverage the existing efforts being done from an enterprise perspective for all of that zero trust activities, so that we can, ensure that we're in alignment and that we can, better our cyber resiliency across the board. All right, as hopefully most of you know, there are three types of 5G networks, right? You have your public, your private, and your hybrid. The Marine Corps today is actually using public 5G. If you have a government cell phone, or any cell phone of any kind really, that's public 5G. It's basically you own the device, but the carrier does absolutely everything else, okay? Private 5G is the initiatives that we are focusing on, right? We have MAGTFTC over here for their training, and then we have Albany doing private 5G to support their smart warehousing and maintenance depot requirements. And that particular one was done out of OUSD pilot. LogCom transitioned it into them, and then we're looking at transitioning into an actual proper program at some point. And then we have hybrid 5G. There has been some discussions about what we as a Marine Corps can do for hybrid 5G. We are not there yet. We are still trying to figure out what we're doing for private, but a hybrid 5G is basically, you have two cores usually. One is public, one is private, and those two cores share infrastructure. That means network transport, maybe they share your user plane function, and then they'll share a RAN to deliver those services to those specific users. Here is a very pretty picture that I made of a basic core. I think it looks pretty good. I put a lot of effort into it. So basically, I just wanted to give some people who don't know, and I'm trying not to get too technical into the weeds, but this is basically what your core looks like. Depending on the solution you go with, some cores can be split, right? So your control plane can be split. You can split your packet controller piece. You can split your subscription management or your user plane functions across wherever geographically you need them to be, or they can be all contained in one solution. So some of the key functions within this that I kind of talk about is your AMF and your SMF. So AMF is access management function, and then SMF is your session management function. Both of those are pretty key. Do your access control, which really ties into that zero trust access control requirements and things like that. You have your user plane function, which routes and forwards user data traffic while enforcing QoS and packet handling policies. And then you have your policy control function. And we're still trying to figure out that piece and really how a 5G PCF can tie into our overall enterprise policy requirements. So that one does govern network policy, quality of service, and rules for user sessions. And then you have a UDM, which is a unified data management. That one manages user subscription data, authentication credentials, and policy profiles. So that one's also very key as well. And then your authentication server function, which is your AUSF. That one performs user authentication and security-related functions. So those are some of the key ones that we've been kind of really focused on. All right, here is just a brief reminder of what Zero Trust is and those fancy pillars. So pillars being device, identity and access management, network and environment, your application workload, data, visibility and analytics, and automation and orchestration. 5G plays a key role in every one of these pillars. Big or small really kind of depends, one, on how your enterprise is structured, and two, how you design or use your 5G solution. Here is a kind of a table. Oops, sorry. Let me go back up again. Here is a table that kind of depicts a very simple OV5 of how it could look for 5G to be integrated into Zero Trust. Specific activities. This is very minimal. This is not very in-depth, but basically we'll call it some things like authentication user equipment. That obviously 5G core would take place, so your authentication function, server function, would play a role in that. You have network access control. Again, we talked about that with your AMF and your SMF for the control plane. Secure application function interface. Monitor and analyze traffic. That one is kind of really where we get that enterprise integration, where your 5G core needs to be integrated with the enterprise SIEM in order to deliver that traffic and get that holistic view of the enterprise, right? And then dynamic policy enforcement, same. So we need to ensure that our 5G core policy functions are tied into our SIEM and SOAR. That way, as an enterprise, whatever policy decisions we make are pushed all the way down to even our 5G users. Encryption enforcement, that's across the board. I think that's the same for almost anything. But encryption is very, very key in 5G because we need to ensure that we are protecting our data over the air, right? If we're sharing RAN, if we're doing MOCN, if we're sharing infrastructure of any kind before we get from our end device to our core, we need to ensure that that data is protected from end to end. And then application and software defined perimeter. This one's kind of a little iffy, still looking in on this, but dropped in, you have your application function for your core, which handles that third-party communication, application communication between the core and outside applications. And then obviously everybody knows enterprise SDP. We are very still new at that. We don't really have as an enterprise a solution yet, but that is where we're going. So we want to ensure that we have shared policy for both. This is just kind of like what it would look like when a device connects, right? You turn your device on, you go to connect, device will then authenticate, it'll talk to your AMF and your SMF, those will then talk to the internals of your core. Once the decision is made, so policy is just made, the policy is then enforced. Secure data is then exchanged, it knows where it needs to go, and then continuous monitoring and threat detection starts occurring. And then as that connection is established, we maintain that dynamic policy updates as needed. Here is a fancy little chart of threats, right? These are not all threats, but these are just some of the high ones. If you look at it, they all kind of look familiar, right? So 5G does have some specific threats that pertain to them. However, it's still a system. It still gets attacked like anything else. So we still have to be prepared for that. So key one for us that we're looking into, like I said earlier, is that man-in-the-middle or over-the-air attack, right? We need to ensure that we are encrypting that data, we are protecting that data. But MITRE did a cyber analysis for OSD. It was very in-depth. If you have not read it, I highly recommend that you read it. One of the key things that came out of that was once an attacker got access to a core function, they were able to move within that core function unnoticed and had access to absolutely everything. So not only securing the data as it moves from the device to the core, but between core function as well is key. All right, now we get to kind of the meat of it and my spiel and pitch about enterprise integration. So as we know, and I don't know if any of you went to the Dawn CIO first brief at 8 a.m. and on Monday morning, where the DoD CIO also spoke, but enterprise integration is where we're all trying to go, right? In this particular case, I'm talking about Marine Corps enterprise integration, because the Marine Corps enterprise is going to then integrate into the Dawn and the DoD. So it's creating that, that chain. So ensuring that we are integrated into the SIEM, SOAR, identity management, vulnerability management, mobile device management, and benefits of those things is that we are reducing technical debt, reducing duplication of effort, right? Why do I need to stand up a new SIEM for 5G if I can just use the enterprise, right? Reduced operational overhead for commands. We all know we're understaffed. We know we do not have the personnel or the training to do most things, so why stand up new things that our young Marines are going to have to manage on a day-to-day basis? And then the key word that, or the one thing that everybody hates, RMF. Reduce your RMF work, right? If you are integrated in the enterprise, the beautiful word of inheritance comes in, and you get to inherit so many wonderful things. So now your package that would have normally taken a year to 2 years, it can be dropped down to like 3 months to 6 months, depending on how you integrate. And then enhanced visibility, right? Getting cyber and our intel community that visibility into all of our network and system spaces so that they can make informed decisions, they can detect anomalies, and they can respond in real time. And then unified data. So the DoD is trying to unify identity management and data tagging and things of that nature. So integration into the overall enterprise gets us even closer to that effort. And then we're able to ultimately deliver our capabilities faster to our warfighter, so that the way they are able to use it, they are able to train with it, and really just, we're modernizing and we're getting to where we need to be faster. So yeah, with that being said, and with that very fast speech that I just gave, I'm gonna hand it over to MAGTFTC, Matt, who's gonna talk about all the wonderful things that they've been doing out at 29 Palms.
Thank you, Jackie. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, I'll see if I can boom this out a little bit, because it's a little bit noisy, a little loud in here. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Is this the same presentation?
Yeah, they're not together?
Oh, it's if you go one tab over, yeah.
All right, good morning. Thanks for taking the time to come over here and listen to this presentation. I want to start off because I'm trying to gauge awareness on how many people know what we're doing in 29 Palms, because 29 Palms is not exactly, Camp Pendleton or someplace that people actually want to go. It's hot in the summertime, it's cold in the wintertime, and not much there other than desert tortoises, coyotes, and that kind of thing. But it's one of the most important bases in the Marine Corps, because that's where every single Marine goes prior to being qualified to deploy for worldwide operations. So what we do there is every manner of warfighting that the Marine Corps is capable of, we do it there, right? And so if you were to go look at it today, you would find the way that they carry it out to be something like, the 80s called, they want their after action and assessment procedures back, because we do it in a very, very rudimentary way. It's effective, but it could be a lot more effective. So the way we got going on this whole thing is, lots of guys with stars on their collars saying, hey, we want our Marines to be better trained, bring their training into the century, right? Because we're just not doing that right now. How can we make a warfighter on the ground immediately aware of his performance or lack thereof, or what they need to work on, or what they need to really sustain because they're really doing well, okay? And so that was sort of the impetus of this. But as soon as we started getting into this, we realized all the other benefits that come along with a network-enabled training area where not necessarily every square kilometer is covered with a network, but anywhere where training goes, the network is available. Okay, so that's just my intro into what I'm going to go through here. Some of it's a little bit high level, what it is we're trying to achieve from a very high level. But the number one thing is last mile connectivity. So if you have a battle simulation center on Camp Pendleton, at Camp Lejeune in Okinawa, Japan, that's great that those battle simulation centers can simulate and train amongst each other, okay? But where you really start getting super value for in the way that you enhance training is by connecting that battle simulation center out there into the training area. Okay, and so what does that do for you? Well, now I've got a guy at the battle simulation center in Camp Lejeune who is working with a no kidding controller in 29 Palms with live air on station and with simulated air on station, getting reps and sets, using AR capability to actually look at a helicopter that's flying, okay, getting reps and sets before they get live air on. Okay, and that Marine that's the Battle Simulation Center in Camp Lejeune is actually able to participate in a way that he could never do before because that last mile connectivity allows that. Okay, so that's the real rub and where our higher headquarters, TCOM, is trying to go with Project AAA. Like I mentioned before, real-time after action. Okay, nothing better than getting done, you're over the hood of a vehicle and you're actually looking at the after action, video feeds, pictures, dots on a map that showed you what you did, where you were, where you needed to be, and where you weren't, if you weren't where you're supposed to be, right? And so immediate that feedback helps a commander to actually improve his unit's lethality and capability immediately. Common operational picture, okay, so 1,200 square miles, multiple training events, all simultaneous, okay, that's a heck of a command and control nightmare. And so what we have already been able to do with our partners sitting here in the front row, are so good to be here, OSIAS, have been able to integrate multiple different command and control tools and simulation tools into one federated common operational picture using Tactical Awareness Kit, okay? ATAC, WinTAC, whatever instantiation of it. And so never before have we been able to do that, and including the battle adjudication system that Saab has fielded to the Marine Corps, sensors on everybody and everything, and adjudicate whether whatever weapon system is being accurately employed. Okay, we've been able to completely federate all of that into one common operational picture, okay? And so it seems like a real common sense thing that of course you would want to do, but technically it's been just we've not been able to get there up until this past July. And so now we're doing it again right now as we speak, 2 macro sites deployed in 29 Palms, enabling all these capabilities. And what we noticed is, as soon as people realized that there was a 5G network out there, I like to call it the Field of Dreams model. Build it and they will come, right? I've gotten hit with all kinds of inquiries from all different types of people with sensors and other things that have to be out in the training, EW sensors, EW emitters, and they all want to now figure out how they can integrate using their own equipment and integrating it with the 5G network that's out there. So it's this sort of synergy that you get out of when the network is available, and all of a sudden you can do things in remote places that you're never able to do before. People's creative juices are flowing, and we're getting a lot of inquiries about how they can come play, right? And one of my main objectives is really to become a government MNO, right? Using our core, our capability, and be able to share it with the entire DoD and government generally, right? Because I think a lot of folks that don't realize what's going on there, once they do realize it, they'll come up with really good ideas of how they can come participate and train. And we already bought it, but I'll get into that in a minute. The final objective is, if we're going to go forward into the first island chain or someplace globally and actually fight a modern type of war, we need to be able to emulate what conditions we're going to face there, here in CONUS, so that we can practice like we play, right? And so with this capability that we have, we can segment this network. We can create a piece of it that supports live virtual constructive training. We can take a piece of it that emulates a host country's cellular network, right? Because if you think that when we go forward that we're not going to use that as part of our PACE plan and a part of a greater capability to command and control, then you're just really ignoring an asset that's going to be available to you, okay? So if we can generate that and then also potentially target it, right? Set up a green field, right? And give our offensive cyber operators something to focus on, something to target, so that when they actually go forward, they know how to do it. They've done it, they've had success, and they've really been able to practice their craft like they never have before, and in a real environment, out in 1,200 square miles of desert where they can simulate almost any environment that they would be going into. This is just where did we get our idea, or where did we get our authorities to do what we're doing? This is just a brief list of some of, but definitely doesn't include everything, but to include the Deputy Commandant for information, his guidance, and then the DoD private 5G strategy, which, by the way, if you read that, it's a short read. You go through the objectives, we hit every single objective that DoD is requiring. And that alignment with DoD policy is really super important, because we're not going to get funded to do this to the extent that we need to if we're not in lockstep with DoD policy. Okay, brief history of time. I won't go through this whole thing, but basically, in June of 2022, we had our first success partnering with AT&T, and that was an interesting industry partnership because they didn't really know what the Marine Corps' requirements or what the government's requirements were at all. So they invested a lot of their own resources into coming and supporting us, doing requirements of refinement, using their first responder type of capability or emergency response capability, and deploying it in a way that they would support like firefighters or first responders, and we used it to actually demonstrate the capability in 29 Palms. Okay, and then moving on from that, we did a couple more iterations, we did refinement, we did a bunch of experimentation, we paid AT&T to come back and do it again to a larger extent, and a real proof that, hey, look, this is doable, this is repeatable, this is feasible, it's super freaking expensive, okay? So in order to get after the resources that are already out there, via the DoD tranche set of experiments, those experiments largely came to an end, and the funding for that went away, but the capital investment by the Department of Defense was still there, right? So they shut down all these projects, and they consolidated a lot of the equipment at Nellis Air Force Base, where one of the projects were. And so we said, hey, we'll do what the Marine Corps always does. We'll take all the stuff that people don't want and are going to throw away, and we will take it and we'll use it to great success, right? And so that's what we had to do. So we got 2 cell-on light truck, and I'll show some pictures of this later, and then 6 cell-on wheels. 2 of those are now turned into macro sites, thanks to OCS doing the great work that they did integrating and fielding this core. Like right this minute, those 2 macro sites are deployed at range 220 in 29 Palms, and at the Camp Wilson site where the XCON and all that is. It's actually working right now, and I think we're everywhere from 5 or 600 megahertz all the way up to 2.5 roughly. So these aren't just lightly capable nodes that you lose the signal when you go inside of a building. These are, has long range capability, they have short range capability, and it's really remarkable what we're able to do there right now with just those 2 nodes, right? So we want to obviously get to where we can cover all of the training events and the entire installation simultaneously, but what's $20 million between friends, It's all we need, it's not much. Okay, but so you can see we're going forward. What we're trying to do is really make be a missionary, go out there and show people how much value there already is, and then make a case for why anybody who wants to be able to train in this environment and do the things that we're doing there, no matter what organization you're with, okay, come help us, invest with us, and we can have all of this success together. Okay, so here's just a layout of the equipment. Like I said, ultimately we want to get to think about 13 or so deployable and fixed sites. Okay, so we only have the 2 colts right now pictured there on the right-hand side. The cows are like 12,000 pounds, super over-engineered, but as we always do, we'll find a way to employ them to great effect. We need to get the main distribution frame installed into building 1986, because right now it's actually inside of one of those colts. But hey, we're making it work, but we have a lot of work to do. Okay, so we're taking a phased approach. That number 1 is where we are right now. That top box and the corresponding color is where we are covering right now. Now, obviously we need to go further, because we need to put the main distribution frame, like I mentioned, into our data center. And which that's not a small point. I keep mentioning that. Once that main distribution frame is inside our data center, it really gives us the ability to do distributed RAN almost anywhere where we can connect back. And whether that's fielding another core someplace and federating it together, or simply doing a remote RAN someplace and being able to use our core back at 29 Palms as the service provider. So that's no small point or priority. And then 3 and 4, okay, how do we get more sites, more cowbell, as our observer controllers like to say, because once they actually had a Samsung S24 in their hand and they could see where everybody was all the time and all the SA that provided, right? Now they're like, hey, we need more cowbell, right? So I'm trying to deliver more cowbell. Okay, so way ahead. Money, right? Nothing moves in this world without getting money. So we need approximately $20 million of investment. We already have 21.5 million invested if you count the reuse, recapitalization of what the DoD already has invested in all the equipment that we have there. So it's not good money after bad. It's good money after good, and we've been able to really save or create some value out of what the DoD already invested in this, and that didn't really translate into any operational capability anywhere outside of Albany. Okay, so we're making your taxpayer dollars work the way that they're supposed to. I like to say I was Doge before Doge was cool, so I'm gonna take that credit, right? Because I was looking for ways to be efficient out of pure necessity. Let me see here. So PR adoption, I think, is really our route to more success. Syscom has money allocated for FY26, about $4.5 million. The purpose that they had originally for that money is no longer compliant with unification, that enterprise integration that Jackie talked about, or ORAN compliance, right? ORAN is a protocol and a principle. The way to get after that money and make it legal for us to be able to use it according to appropriation laws is to hit all of those things that I mentioned, and we're compliant with all of them. So I don't have any guarantees that we're going to enter the Syscom program of record at PEO Digital, but we're working on it, trying to make a good case for it. But then in FY27, integrating, becoming part of Project Tripoli, which is TCOM's project that gets after live virtual constructive training environment. So they're very high level, they're at the enterprise level. We're building it from the bottom up and trying to meet in the middle and make this an instantiation of Project Tripoli, and then put it into that program of record, and then ultimately be able to get care and sustainment. And then way down the road, after this first iteration is really, is Oracle Cloud Infrastructure going to be the place that we're going to go live? Or is Azure, or is Google, or is wherever, Amazon, right? Because I think there's a lot of wisdom and there's a lot of desire to move into that sort of cloud environment and get out of business of owning things instead of leasing things, as a service model all the way down to to what lives on a server inside a data center. So with that, that's pretty much everything. I know I hit it pretty fast. It's a little loud in here, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hear any questions, or if Jackie can hear the questions. But we'd enjoy taking whatever questions you might have, or if you want to just talk afterwards, we can do that too. So at this point, go ahead.
It's on. Hey, are the slides going to be available?
Hey, two.
We can make them available.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can certainly put those out. They're open source. Anybody who wants to take them can. There's a few backup slides in there too.
Test. Good. Hey, so I have two questions. One, have you looked at working at all with MAGTFTC and the 5G work they're doing at MAGTFTC at Camp Pendleton? Yeah, I'll start with that one.
Okay. No, yeah. So I was at MAGTFTC last week. And again, I really want to draw some attention to Matt Cohen and Jay Baker here from OSIUS, because they've been, like, I'm not kidding you, champions in getting us to where we are today, working with T-Mobile. So the reason I mention that is because Matt and I went to MAGTFTC last week, 2 weeks ago, and spoke to Lucas Vancina, Captain Vancina, and his team there. Scott Hosley was not there; he was out of the country doing other things. But so their use case is interesting because it's a laboratory environment. Like Matt likes to say, they're a little more focused on the what rather than the why. And so, but we are actively trying to partner with them and see where it is that we can provide them some value with our capability, but also give them a place where that if they are going to test and develop, they have a place that's convenient just right up the road that they can do it.
Great, thanks for that. I'm with MITRE. I work under Tom Collins under the OUSD R&E Future G office, so I'll come connect with you guys after. My second question is for them, specifically for your work, is the 5G network that you're deploying there just a means to an end to make it better to connect at the data level and do training, or are you also interested in the research and development and potential features that 5G networks themselves can offer? So not just your standard 5G NR network coverage that allows you to connect anywhere and have low latencies for AR VR applications, but are you also interested in the actual 5G core network itself? Sorry, I lost it there.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yeah. Can you repeat the last portion of your question again?
Yeah, is the 5G network deployed at 29 Palms just to an end to connect applications with low latency and getting cut out, or are you also looking at how the 5G core network features and functions themselves can be researched and provide better connection and actually be involved in the training and testing that the warfighters are doing? Over.
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah. So yes, it's for training, but also to your point, for us at a cybersecurity perspective, yes, how the core functions and how that can be utilized, that is kind of what interests us at DCI. So we are very much interested in that and how that can be used for many applications. But yes, no, definitely, absolutely.
Great, thanks. I'll come connect after.
Okay, thank you. Just stand.
And I'll just add on to that a little bit too, that we have no limitations on what we are able to do there in terms of like what's in the realm of the feasible. So that it's, again, the build it and they will come approach to this, philosophy to this is really important, because we have a feeling that something that we have no idea was even a requirement or a capability or whatever is going to come out of nowhere, right? And then we are really dedicated to being able to make 29 Palms not only the premier training base in the Marine Corps, but also the premier place to go and whatever assumption or whatever concept you have, that we will provide the place in order to come and validate and learn and become sort of a laboratory of it in its own right. I think it's tricky today.
you.
One second. Sir, hold up, sir. We're having some radio frequency issues. A lot of radio frequency. Try this one.
They're having radio frequency issues at a communications conference. Great. Hi, Kurt Jacobs from JMA. First of all, great presentation. Second of all, I don't think you give yourself enough credit for what you've done in the Marine Corps with 5G, with the diversity of vendors, the applications that are running on top, and integrating it, whether it's from fixed sites at Albany to Tactical Edge that they're doing out at 29 Palms. So, first of all, you're really on the bloody edge, which is great from an industry perspective. However, you knew that was coming. What do we really think that? Do we have to get this on the APL? I see two things. There's like an operational certification. Do we need an an APL kind of JITC certification, or can we treat this black box? And can we, on the security side, the accreditation, can we really achieve reciprocity and inheritance of issues at a rapid scale? Because we do have such diversity in how we can now, with Open RAN systems, mix and match. I know it's kind of long-winded, but I did start with a compliment.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the compliment. No, so for the APL and JITC certification, depending on what your system, you're attempting that system to be used for, it's always best to go through that process, right? And then FIPS, are you familiar with NIST, FIPS, CMVP?
Yes, but on the APL, there is no category for 5G. That's one of the things.
Well, yeah. So you would submit through JITC, and then that would be a process. They would basically make it. So you're new. There's no reason why you can't. You know what I mean?
Start from scratch. Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay,
so, and then what was your other? Oh, the accreditation piece, or what was the other part of
well,
your question?
reciprocity. Can we treat these networks more as black boxes, since the architecture of 5G is such that, if I'm encrypting over the top, and to unburden the underlying network and keep the cyber accreditation more at the higher levels of the stack and the applications.
Yeah. So if you're doing MOCN, for instance, or you're doing like shared RAN and things like that, if let's say the Marine Corps doesn't own that, we don't plan to own it, we just need to use it as like a service, then there is that option, right? But if we as a Marine Corps say it's on a vehicle and we own it, we operate it, we would then have to accredit that system on our own. And so it depends on the application in which it's being used. And then the accreditation piece kind of goes into there. If it's shared RAN, then that's kind of in the RMF process. You answer your controls based off that. But ultimately, all of it will have to be accredited. Reciprocity can be done as long as like say the Navy is doing it, and we want to do it the exact same way the Navy's doing it. We will absolutely do reciprocity all day, every day. We'll even do reuse, which is like another form of reciprocity, but absolutely 100%, right? So say we're deploying our own 5G on a ship to go along with the Navy's 5G on the ship. Though I don't know why we would do our own, but we'll just say hypothetically speaking. And they have their RAN infrastructure. We would absolutely tie into that. The goal would be to tie into that and do reciprocity with them. So we then don't have to maintain it. It is very much on them, and we don't have to duplicate work. And that's kind of where I was getting with the duplication, reducing the duplicate work, right? Duplicate effort. So yeah, did that answer your question for you?
It did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
So.
Any other questions?
I'll add one more.
Uh-oh.
No. Just you brought up Open RAN and ORAN. What's on the priority list? Where does that lie in getting that implemented into these systems?
That's the direction we are told to go. So it is a high priority. As we're developing these and implementing these, we need to ensure that that's the direction, or the solutions that we're selecting support that capability. So you might want to come up. No, you want to.
Going back to that slide that I had that had the strategic guidance, that Department of Defense private 5G deployment strategy that just came out in October. It's pretty clear what we must do. Now, I have my own feelings about ORAN. That's just from my education about it. And again, I like to kind of think about it as what Red Hat is to Linux, right? Red Hat's not free just because it's open, right? It's the same sort of thing. So no matter what happens going forward in the future, yeah, you definitely have a box now that you know what's in it. And I think from a cybersecurity standpoint, that's a good thing because you know exactly what to look at and where. But it's not a panacea of making sure that you're not paying a vendor in the future, what they're worth, what it takes in order to implement and administrate. So although from a principal point of view, I concur with the ORAN, concept, but I just think we need to make sure that we all have a uniform understanding of what ORAN is and also what it's not. Okay, so I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Hello, Farhan Safdin with Avanti Mobile Iron. To your point about more cowbell, right? You mentioned ATAC specifically, but what are some of the other use cases that us vendors can ultimately help the Marine Corps solve for outside of ATAC?
So, this is real new, right? So this is our first sort of go at this over the last couple of years. And so we have not gone very far outside of TAC. That doesn't mean that we are, TAC exclusive. It's just really easy to work with. And there's a lot of partners out there who can manipulate it and build, add-ins for it and make it really, really useful. And then just organically, it does a lot of really good stuff and it's really, really intuitive and user-friendly. And so, again, we're not excluding anything. If something better comes along, we'll integrate that or see if it works with TAC, or maybe we'll replace it altogether. Because we originally started off with Kill Switch on the MAGTAB platform, right? And that is terrible, right? Because it's hard to network it. It's hard to tie it in with anything else because of the platform that it lives on itself. And then and just quickly come to a point where it's not very useful. TAC, we haven't experienced that with TAC, just because there's so many ways that it can be manipulated and improved and customized. So yeah, so far we're living there.
Thank you.
Anybody else at all? All right, we're good. All right, we'll definitely stay back, and anybody wants to have offline conversation, be welcome to do that. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your time.